If we're good at the freedom part, we're pretty crappy, if you want to put it that way, at the next step, which is putting that freedom to work. We just sort of say, here's the information, go do what you want with it. Because so many of us have been stung by being told what to do, or what to think, or where to go, or how to do it. So we find it hard to say you're expected to do this or that, unless it's to give money, of course. But we're not even very good at that, come to think of it. But why would any one of us join any group that didn't expect anything of us at all? Here's what we expect. Simple, but not easy. We expect you to grow, to become more of who you are than you were before, to become better at being yourself, and to get so good at it that the world notices that you're there. It's what I call growing your soul. What I'd like to say is the result of something called spiritual fluency. In some ways, the best way to describe this expectation is to talk about it as like learning a language or a musical instrument. Yes, you're free to play the piano, sit right down, but I'm not going to stay in the room and listen to you bang upon it until you've discovered a note. I'm going to help you find out where the notes are, and if you want to play them well, you're going to have to play your scales up and down to the point of numbness. W.H. Auden speaks of practicing the scales of rejoicing. That's what church is about. Or Audre Lorde, who says we must make of our lives a study as if learning natural history or music, practicing until strength and accuracy become one. It's not enough to know things. You must incorporate them into your lives. That's what I mean by spiritual fluency. And only by conscious effort, conscious practice can our lives embody our values, grow us, not just dwell in our heads. Of course, there are lots of religious tools. There's worship, and there's prayer, and there are retreats and rituals. You can do all sorts of religious stuff, but it doesn't even have to be religious stuff. For me, actual piano scales are part of my spiritual practice. I do words all the time. It's great to do something that isn't about words. It's all in the body, that requires attentiveness to detail. That's part of what keeps my brain from exploding every week. I've chosen to be a vegetarian in the last few years because once I learned more about how meat happens, I was less and less comfortable taking part in that. It now is part of who I am because it taught me that I needed to be there. Tithing is my religious practice. Yes, I honestly believe I should give back 10% at least, because I know that my work that I do is not just for me, it's for the community. And the practice of giving reconnects me to the communities I care about. Let's just say that I believe in what the Jews call tikkun olam, the repair of the world. If you live in an apartment or a house or you have a car, you know that once you bought it, you're going to have to fix it pretty soon. You wear it out. You have to darn the socks. Of course, my wife would like to say when you darn socks, you hold up the sock with a hole in it and say, oh, darn. And you But the reality is we got to repair the world. We wear it out. Put new soles on the shoes, new tires on the car, clean up. And our actions in the world are that kind of action, to repair the world that we wear out. Which brings me to the third thing that liberal religion is about: moral competence, doing the right thing. And that comes to my third story. It's the story of a church board, a story I heard years ago from a mentor of mine. It was meeting late into the evening because the issue was important. This was many years ago, and the church was a prosperous, liberal cathedral surrounded by a great university and a great city. The issue was membership, to wit, should Negroes be admitted? The board was divided. Or shall I say it was non-unanimous, because one person would not agree and they would not change it unless it was unanimous. Words heated up as the evening went on. The one holdout kept shaking his head. The only one who had not spoken was the pastor. Quietly but firmly, the pastor explained why he supported changing the policy to admit black members. When he was done, the holdout who had clung to his sovereign right to dissent all evening spoke, saying, "This church upholds the right of each member to his own conscience and has a duty to work as hard as it can to change people like me." It was unanimous. I can't say that story without feeling a moment of tingling awareness that that's a moment of moral competence, not of the board, but of the man who changed his mind, who realized that his obligation was larger than he wanted it to be, who took on a responsibility that he did not seek. We may never face such a moment personally or even collectively, but we will all have moments when doing the right thing will be really hard, very costly, perhaps even dangerous. This church and liberal religious institutions have a duty to help us make tough, ethical choices, not to make them for us, but to help us figure out how. We did that, you know. You should take more credit than you do. When I asked if you would devote the Sunday collection to social justice, my board agreed. And so did you. Do you remember when we did it? 2009, during the recession. It meant that we would have less money, and we have economized. We have had to do with less. And periodically someone says, well, we should take that collection back, but for everyone who does, 5 say no. You figured it out. It was our duty, not just to speak a good word, but to do a good word, to be a force for liberty and justice, not just a voice for it. Again, the gospel calls me to mind, what does it profit a man or a church to gain a life and lose its soul? Our soul was on the line. You knew it. We did it. We have not turned back. Because see, once you know the right thing to do, once you know it unambiguously, when you can't come up with an excuse, you do it. My title is from the book of Proverbs, supposedly written by wise King Solomon. Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn her 7 pillars. It's a great image. Of course, Islam has 7 pillars. I believe liberal religion has 3. Religious literacy, spiritual fluency, and moral competence, because we use them to free our minds, grow our souls, and change our world. And this past week, I have an experience to share that brought all 3 to bear. As I mentioned earlier, someone decided to use the front of our building to comment on our art prize entrance. They used a permanent marker to scrawl a Greek phrase on the front, one that is associated with vigorous gun advocacy. There's a long story there. I had to look it up. There's my illiteracy working for you. I knew how to look that stuff up. I was not clueless. I knew how to find the information. And I was angry. Someone had defaced my church. A few months ago, actually a couple of years ago, someone filched my diversity stake out of my front lawn. That made me angry too. So what was I going to do about this one? Well, what did I do? I went upstairs and I played the piano so I could collect my thoughts, so I could think it through, so I could sense what my good and wise reaction should be, so I could chart a path of integrity, not just of reaction. And while I was playing my scales of rejoicing, I realized I wasn't going to have a tantrum, nor was I going to scrape the words away. I said, no, that's a badge of honor out there. It's a scar that says we have risked ourselves for what matters to us. We have nothing to be ashamed of at all. In fact, I want the world to come and look at it. And they did. There was the moral competency to know the right path. This week, we have watched our Congress abandon all three principles: knowledge, understanding, and courage. They have been shining examples of ineptitude in human nature. I'd like to play the piano before I go much further. But it's a fact that we are gridlocked by political and religious and economic issues, perhaps like the two women claiming the same baby and bringing their case to Solomon. Well, I'm not Solomon and I have no tricks up my sleeve. They did not come to me. But this I know, our nation needs wisdom, not wiseacres. It needs people who know that we've been through times like this before and aren't afraid and don't use fear to get what they want. We need people who understand that even those with whom they disagree deserve care and respect, even when they don't extend it back to them. We need people who, as the song says, more than self their country love, who serve not because it advances their ideology or their career, but because it's the right thing to do. That's wisdom, to know the truth, to know yourself, and to act on it despite the risks. We should be a people like that. As Jews come to the end of Torah on this holiday of Simchat Torah, as you know, they dance around the synagogue. But when they reach the last words, the words are those that you said in English at the beginning of the service. Be strong, let us be strengthened. Hazak, hazak, v'nichazech. I say to you, be wise, and let us become pillars of wisdom. For a teetering world desperately needs more pillars. And who will answer if not us? So may it be. And amen. Be strong.